high-pass filters.
High-pass filters.
Don't be afraid to use high-pass filters.
So I'm sure you've heard the mixing advice that you should low-cut everything to make room for the bass. And it's not bad advice, like you don't want the low end of your mix to become a crazy mess. So that obviously sounds more full now, but the low end is just too muddy that way. So the first example, it sounds a lot cleaner, but you're sacrificing power and depth and warmth. And then the second example, you have more power, but everything is too muddy. But there's actually a pretty easy way to get the best of both worlds here. So let's talk about how you can get a powerful mix while also not messing up the low end. So no matter what track you're working on, the first thing you gotta do is pick which layer you want to dominate the low end. So in this track, we've got this pad, then this pad layer. It's a little softer, and then we've got this other pad, and then we've got the bass. So all that stacks together to make this. But obviously it still sounds too muddy. So obviously I want the bass to power the low end, but before we get to that, we gotta make sure the pads fit together. So the first thing I'm gonna do is pick one pad to dominate the low mids. So that one's got a nice warm tone to it. Let's make that dominate the low mids while the other pads give way to that one. So let's go to this top pad here, and let's just add an EQ on that. So let's add a new spectral EQ band here. And what I'm gonna do is sidechain this one layer to the other pad that we wanna be the anchor, pad 3. So we're gonna sidechain that, and we'll go in the spectral EQ settings and make sure this tiny little sidechain button is turned on. And now you'll see the frequencies in this pad layer are gonna duck out of the way of the other pad that we're anchoring it to. So now those two pads are starting to fit together more like puzzle pieces. So let's move on to the next pad layer too. So that's the smooth layer. And then when we add in the main pad, they're just fighting in that low mid range a little bit. So we're gonna do the same thing with this pad. I'll set up a spectral EQ band. I'll sidechain it to that main pad. And then I'll go into the spectral EQ settings here. Make sure sidechain is turned on. And then we'll just duck these lower frequencies a little bit. So now those three pad layers are fitting together. I'm gonna send all three of them to the same bus. So this time we're gonna sidechain everything to the bass, which is right here. So now you can see the bass down there in the red and the pads are in the gray, and you can see how they're fighting for space in the low mids and the low frequencies. So let's do like a two-step process to get these layers fitting together. So first let's control the sub frequencies like under 100 Hertz here. And then after that, let's control like the low mids, but we're only gonna do that on the mid frequencies. And we'll talk about that in a second, but let's talk about the low end first. So that's making sure the bass dominates those sub-frequencies. But if you think about most bass sounds, they're right in the middle of the mix. And if you listen to these pads, they're nice and wide in the stereo field. So when it comes to the low mids, actually, we want that low end information from the pads to sound nice and full. So I actually don't want to turn down the pads in this area because it's gonna make them sound less full when we can really just turn down the middle of the pads to duck out of the way of the bass. So that way the pads will kind of envelop the space around the bass. So now we got to do a big before and after of all these changes, but in the context of the full mix. So let's do that. So this track is a sick track I mixed for this guy called Moonwater. So I'm going to link his Spotify page down below if you want to go check it out. But let's check out this before and after. So if you want to check out this track, I'll link it down below, and you can go to bigzstudios.com for everything. I have sound packs, I have courses, I mix music for people, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.